Hello, everyone. Welcome to Why Wellness. I'm Gina Rose, a certified personal trainer and fitness nutrition specialist, and I created this platform for so many of us to share our why. Oftentimes, we hear this buzzword question in the health and fitness industry, and I couldn't think of a better way than to compile our stories right here on my podcast, Why Wellness. We're here discussing inspiring, relatable, and motivating stories from health and fitness professionals across various platforms. Please subscribe, rate, and share my podcast. It would mean so much to me. I can't wait to share this next episode with you. All right, welcome back to Why Wellness. Today on the show, we have a well-being coach from Baltimore, Maryland. He's a personal trainer with focuses in Pilates, meditation, and Reiki. He's also the author of 4 children's fitness books, and he's been my friend for about 7 years now. Please help me welcome Jason Williams, aka Charm City PT. Thank you for being here, Jason.
Hey, Gina, thanks for having me. 7 years, huh? That's
yeah, I counted that out. I counted it out before we started to make sure. But yeah, I think I started at the MAC in 2013, and that's where we met.
Wow, yeah, gosh, I guess it has been 7 years.
I know.
Time flies.
It really does. What year did you start working at the MAC? So it's the Maryland Athletic Club where Jason and I actually met in the fitness industry. But what year did you start there?
I started 2011.
Okay.
So not too long before you. Yeah, so that was in line before that, and then I went to the MAC right at 2011. Probably like January, February, something like that.
Yeah.
2011. Yeah.
And then you left me.
And then I left. Yeah, 2016. I said I gotta go.
Yeah, I left around the same time too. I think like a little bit after you. But it was definitely, I look at the MAC as like my intro to the fitness world. That's really where I started. Brought lots of good friends and lots of good experiences for sure.
Yeah, it's a good spot.
Before we talk about all your accomplishments and the awesome things that you're doing in the industry, I like to talk about the backstory. And what I mean by that is if you can think of like a turning point in your life that maybe led you to this industry, or what kind of awakened you to enter into the fitness, the health industry. So if you can take it back and kind of give us a story about your journey.
Yeah, so I went to school for sports medicine is my background. So 2002, I graduated, got done, college, came back home to Bel Air, and kind of didn't know what I wanted to do. I know I wanted to do something in sports as far as from my I guess my degree, but I joined a gym, and then one of the guys there was like, "Hey, do you ever just wanted to train?" And I figured, I was like, I didn't really think about it. I was like, yeah, no, that actually sounds pretty good. I can just do that until I kind of figure out what I wanted to do. And then kind of like fell in love with it from there. So, started out kind of like very, very small, just, I was at Bel Air Athletic Club, so it's very family oriented, and they have like kids clubs and all that stuff. So kind of started like working with kids a little bit, and then eventually got like another client, and then started getting like slowly more clients. And then when you're in a gym setting like that, you can kind of have, it's like Playtown. You can do kind of whatever you want. You can do group X, you can do whatever, essentially. And there I kind of dabbled in a little bit of everything. I'll say like 2 of my, I guess, mentors or people I kind of watched when I was there. This one guy called Bubba. He was really the group exercise like guru. He did like everything from karate. He taught step class, spin class, and he kind of taught me to like always kind of like learn like your craft, right? Just from watching him. And then my other friend, Brandon or Brad, he was very a technical trainer, very good at like being in a session and doing like just like certain movements that I've never seen before. So I learned that part of training through him, just kind of being more sound and training one-on-one and things like that. So I kind of got those 2. I was lucky enough to have 2 people like that to kind of learn from and just watch from afar. And, if I needed questions or anything like that, they were available. And then 2008, I left there and came downtown. And the same guy, Brandon, he had started inline with another trainer from Merritt. And I went there and started training. That's where I kind of learned more of the Pilates stuff. I had my Pilates before that, but I learned more like reformer and that kind of thing, and more about body alignment and fascia and all that stuff. And then from there, I went to the MAC in 2011. So that's kind of a quick, hopefully, synopsis of where I've been.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned you started out like working with kids and things like that when there was the kids club at the Bel Air Athletic Club. And I was curious because that's sort of a question that I want to answer when we start talking about your books. But were you working with them like as far as like fitness classes, or can you talk a little bit about like the difference in working with kids on their physical fitness versus working with adults?
Yeah, so the kids I started with were super young. They were probably like 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds. Mm-hmm. So very, very young. And that was like, it's more like just skill stuff, kind of like you would do soccer camp, you know? So it's kind of like dribbling through cones and stuff like that, like jumping jack. It's like very gymnastics type stuff. So that was pretty cool. And then moving from there into like more younger athletes, which is kind of cool. So your middle school kid athletes who are playing sports, high school. I was coaching around that time too, probably 2004, 3-4. I started coaching track at my old high school. So I had like that experience was nice too, to kind of just like kind of learning, like how kids kind of look up to you and you can kind of shape some minds a little bit. So, you know, back to your question about training kids versus adults. I guess the difference is depending on where you are in your exercise history as an adult, right? Like what you've done in the past, where you're trying to go, it kind of can vary. It maybe gets a little bit harder, like depending on, because you're different, dealing with different personality types, right? And as a kid, you're kind of like, I'll do whatever, like, you know, or, you know, so that's, I would say, the biggest difference.
It's almost a little bit harder to teach or to coach kids if it's not like a sport, right? With like proper form and like movement patterns, because like they're not so aware of their body yet.
Yeah, in some ways, it can and can't be. It's like it's kind of like too with like meditation in kids. It's like you can give them they're actually kind of easier to teach than adults, because as you become an adult, again, like I said, you have personality types, but as like say with meditation, as us as adults, we have so much going on. Yeah. Like we can get distracted, where kids aren't very just like singular. Like they have like what they know and that's like it. And you can kind of like, it's easier to kind of teach that way.
Yeah, true. Okay, cool. So you ended up at the MAC like 2011 through 2016. But then you branched off more so into your own thing, which is what you're doing now. And I know you've dabbled in, you know, all different areas of health and fitness. So like I mentioned, the meditation, the Reiki, the Pilates, the personal training, group fitness, you know, kind of a jack of all trades. Can you tell us about the transition outside of the club into your own sort of world, and what also, as a follow-up to that, what your favorite focus might be, whether it's your favorite personal practice or what you prefer to coach out of all of those sort of areas?
So how I got into each one, or just as a generalization of all those?
However you think it's best to like help us learn your transition from the club setting to becoming your own entrepreneur and running your own business. Yeah,
that makes sense. So I think that was 2016, or 15. I guess there was a couple. I've always had that mindset of like, I don't want to, I want to do what I do well locally, like, because I think you definitely need that community space to build like your brand, to build referrals, right? So you definitely have to get out and kind of be more visual, not just in your club, if you're in a club or gym or whatever. So I've always had the mindset of like, I want to be able to collaborate with whoever I wanted to collaborate with. And that kind of segues into like, if you're in a gym, I need to be able to do that kind of stuff. So I might not need to be in a gym to do that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. So we got bought by Wellbridge, which is a company I'd worked for before. So I was kind of like, well, do I want to do the corporate thing? And I've already done it before. And I was like, and it was kind of like a timing thing where it was like I was ready to do it. And then I went to Miami, literally 2015. I think it was Art Basel, and I did the Mind Body Green class and all that stuff. And that's when I got like into more of meditation and stuff like that. And it was like I knew as soon as I got back, or actually there, I was like, I'm leaving January 1st. So and then it was kind of like a slow transition from that, like just from building people or meeting people. In terms of like from Empowers, like, okay, I know I want to keep teaching classes. Where am I going to do that? I know I'm going to train. How's that going to look? Who's going to come with me? Who may not come with me? So you kind of start playing all that stuff out. And then it was like it was very seamless. Yeah. And and then 2016, I was like, all right, let's just do this thing. So yeah, like I think you kind of always have to be a little bit prepared. Like you have to kind of think 3, 4, 5 months out. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
Right. And how's that going to look if it does or doesn't work, right? Mm-hmm. And what's the worst case scenario, right? Can you go back? Mm-hmm. You might be able to say, I can always go back, and that's not too bad.
Right. So what did you focus on most in the beginning of that transition? Were you just training like one-on-one clients more so, or did you start coaching meditation and then learning all of these other areas?
Yeah. That's when I had gotten more deeper into meditation. Mm-hmm. So I was starting to teach more of that and doing Reiki. No, I wasn't doing Reiki yet. No, I wasn't doing Reiki quite yet then. But it was just more a lot of meditation, like training and teaching and learning. And I think that's kind of like when you start getting into that kind of stuff, you start getting a little more of awareness of who you are and where you want to go with your life and your career. You start manifesting more things and you have to make a change, right? So I think that's kind of what helped me kind of just say, oh, okay, I can just make that transition easier,
Yeah. So what is Reiki, and what's the difference between Reiki and meditation? Can you break that down for us?
Yeah. So meditation, I guess you could kind of say it's more of a present moment awareness type thing. Like it's a deliberate act of kind of just sitting and either being with your thoughts or you're taking that time. So it's very like, meditation is probably a little bit more personal for each person, I would say too. Like you can include prayer in that, all those things, right? Or you can separate depending on who you are. So it's more personal for the individual with meditation, but it's just like kind of just being with you in your private time, right? Reiki is more of the lamest terms is energy healing. So think of like chakras. It has to do with some of those things. Like we all have a Reiki energy. So it's just kind of like tapping into that to be able to self-heal, to bring awareness to your body, what's going on with your body, what's going on with your mind, how to navigate through life, balance stress. So in terms of like practicing it on somebody, it can be hands-on or hands-off. So you don't necessarily have to touch the person to do Reiki. But I kind of like to teach Reiki as to the person so they can do it to themselves too, and not just have me facilitate it, so that they know it's their energy. It's not necessarily anything I'm necessarily doing for them.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask that. Is Reiki something you can also do on your own, like meditation, or do you need a coach to facilitate it?
Yeah, it's kind of like it's like massage, right? Like massage is always better when somebody does it. It's like fun, but you can foam roll and do that stuff yourself, right?
Right.
So like I'll do Reiki for myself, but it's sometimes it's nice to go get Reiki done by another practitioner.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
Cool. And are the sessions like the same in terms of length? Like, do you sort of build up? Because I know with meditation, like for a beginner, you usually start out sort of, with less time. Maybe you like try and focus for 5 minutes and then increase over time the more you become like aware and still and silent in your thoughts. Or is it the same with Reiki where you start out with a smaller session and build up to it, or is it sort of a longer?
Yeah, so usually a session is 45 minutes. Okay. About So we always kind of start off with that. It could be longer depending on what's going on, right? Each person's different. Each session can be a little bit different, but typically it's about 45 minutes. Could go a little bit over. And then an example, if you're doing it to yourself, it could be a little bit shorter, right? It might be 20 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, depending on what your goal is or what you're trying to accomplish. So
yeah. And what would you say is like the biggest benefit from doing that? Like if someone was interested in maybe trying it out, like they are familiar with meditation, but maybe they want to try something new. What is the biggest benefit from doing that?
I would say like mainly like stress relief. It's super relaxing, Reiki. It's very like you'll get off the table and you just kind of feel like a lot of weight is lifted type thing. I would say that's the generalization of like what you're going to feel afterwards, right? Yeah, but to go deeper into it, different things could happen in terms of like, which will all be good. Like you could have a lot of energy, you could like just be very chill, so it could kind of go either way. And then you can kind of definitely get a little bit deeper into, more other things in terms of like what might happen in a session though. But that's kind of like the general thing. Yeah.
That's awesome. Do you have anybody that you look to when you started getting into meditation? I know you said you went to the Mind Body Green thing in Florida.
Yeah. Like for me, like it's kind of always like you have your like, it's not gurus because, no one's a guru, but like you have your people like who, like for me, like starting out with meditation, it was, I guess we'll actually go back. Like, so it would have been like Bubba and Brandon, like when I first started training, right? Like those would have been kind of people like, because again, there doesn't have to be somebody that's, so unreachable, untouchable. Like they can be somebody that right? So it's kind of like people like that. And then you kind of find those mentors, like Andrew Freeman was somebody for me too, in terms of like personal development and stuff like that. Like when, like, in terms of like business type stuff or just like, asking questions, like he was kind of been a guru or not guru, but like a mentor to me like that. And then once I got kind of more into like meditation, it was Charlie Knowles from Mind Body Green. And then Light Watkins, and they were pretty instrumental in the beginning because they had courses on there, and I would just take a lot of their courses and stuff like that. Shaman Dirk was like later on another kind of like mentor and stuff like that. So like like anyone like that has always been even just like Sadie Lincoln from Bar 3, who's like a mentor, or just kind of like watching her from afar and her energy, So I mean, you can have like all these mentors, and they're kind of always shift and shape and change, right, throughout life, and then depending on what direction you go.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned and like you took it back to the guys at the club. So Brandon and what was the other one's name?
Bubba Eugene. Bubba Eugene. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it how you took it all the way back there because again, like even for me, like you're someone that I met in the industry that you sort of introduced. I remember doing like my first Pilates session with you. Like you meet people who along the way will introduce you to new things, and you can either take it if it's something that aligns or resonates with you and kind of like build on that. But I think that's awesome. And then of course you're always going to have like the untouchable, sort of, famous influencers, if you will. But they're people just like us too. And I think that, over time it's awesome to build that network of people who have shaped you over time. So cool. I love it. What about, okay, so let's get into Frankie Fitness, because I remember too. So it was around that same time, like 2015-ish, that you came out with the first Frankie Fitness book, right? Or am I late?
Yep. Yeah, 14 maybe, 2014. Okay. I think it was, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think that was the first one, yeah.
So I remember doing that book fair with you too, and like when it first came out. So tell us what inspired Frankie Fitness, the book, and how it's evolved over time.
Yeah, so again, that's kind of relating back to the Bel Athletic Club and just working with kids, right?
Yeah.
So just seeing how the kids look up to you, or like they'll necessarily do things their parents won't tell them to do, but they'll listen to you because you're not their parent, right? So I kind of saw that and was like, there's something to that. Like, how can I keep that going even though maybe I'm not around to be able to do it, right? Mm-hmm. So that's when I kind of had that first idea for the book. So I was like, I want to write a kid's book one day just on fitness, right? And then and that was, I will say, the first book I wrote, I bet you it was 3 or 4 years before I actually published it. So it was kind of just sitting, right? So I kind of had the idea and everything. And then I became a Lululemon ambassador like 2013. Yes, 2013, that fall. And, they do these, all the ambassadors meet up. And it's kind of like one of these cool meetings where it's like, how can I help you? 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 We all just kind of do this big goal setting powwow type thing. And one guy was like, Sid McNeary was like, hey, I have a guy who does books. I can give you his name and da-da-da. And that's kind of how it first started, and then met that guy and he kind of put me in contact with an illustrator. And then it was like just went, So, that was 2013. So pretty much, I think it was like a year later it came out.
Yeah.
After that. And then I realized, like, okay, I did the fitness thing. And then I wanted to kind of, okay, let's do the nutrition thing. Because I saw kind of how the effects of the first book and having exercises in the back was very helpful. And people enjoyed that part of it. So I was like, okay, well, I can do a nutrition one and kind of start building now the whole wellness side of it. So it was always I always wanted to do that. And then once I got into meditation, then it was like, we'll do a meditation book. And then I was going to stop and that was going to be it and done. So I was like, cool. We got fitness, nutrition, meditation. That's good. We're kind of covering all the bases there.
Now kids are doing Pilates.
Yeah. And then now we did Pilates. And that was very much so I'll say that transpired through, okay. So this was probably right in the midst of the pandemic and everything. So, which has been a very interesting time of creation, where you've had the pandemic and then you had a lot of social injustices, and from just virtually meeting newer people, which is crazy, through this time through virtually, more people in the Pilates industry. I will say this is the most involved in Pilates I've been with since I've been an instructor, and meeting a lot of Black Pilates instructors out there. And meeting some who are doing social impact stuff with Pilates and in the industry of Pilates. And it was like, I got to do another book.
Yeah.
It was just kind of like that. It was just like, and then that's kind of how that happened. So it was just, all right, well, start writing and get back to it. And we just did it. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you think you'll do another one, or it's just you never know, right? It's
you never know. I guess now I can't say no, but
right.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, you think you're done, but then the stars align and it just makes
something happens. Yeah.
So, taking it back just for a second, because it's probably, you said you wrote it and then it just sat there for 3 years, right? Or some amount of time. I guess one of the hardest things about would be publishing or putting it out into the world, right? So was it really just you needed that connection to help you push it out, or was it something else that was holding you back from releasing your creative side?
Yeah, I think it's part of it was connection, part of it's belief, right? Even the person that his name is Ken that Sid introduced me to. He's kind of he made a very good point. Everyone has a story to tell.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's part of the belief, right? And what you have and what you want to put out. So I think for anybody, anyone should write a book, whether you get it published or not. You should write something, or you should do something, at least so you have it for you,
right.
So yeah. So I think and once you go through the process of it, you realize, it wasn't that bad. It's kind of always when you start thinking oh man, it's gonna be hard, and you're you start going through it, and then it's this is pretty easy, So
yeah.
And then that kind of always use that mindset since that, point.
Okay.
For everything.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I write a lot. I used to write when I was younger, like just words. I don't even know what they were sometimes, like songs, lyrics, poems, letters, this and that. I have tried to write a book several times, and like I get into my own head because I think a lot of it is, okay, like you're trying to make it this story that other people will want to read versus like actually just writing down whatever comes authentically, and then if people read it, they read it, and if they don't, they don't. But at the same time, at least like it's actually written. But I tend to get into my own head and never finish anything, and it's like, well, maybe I should take the story this way or whatever. So maybe I've talked about this in previous podcasts before about saying that one day I will write a book. So
a lot of it's timing, right? A lot of it's just like time. Don't necessarily think it's like you're getting distracted and you won't finish it. It's just like love is just you'll get to it kind of when you're ready to get to it, type thing.
Yeah.
I
also think like part of it is like I want to write about like real life experiences, but then you have other people in your world or in your life that you would have to pull those experiences from, and it's like about protecting like those people and the names and everything like that. So it's like it can be very complicated if you actually sit down and think about it.
Right, yeah, depending on what you're writing about, right? Yeah, like kids' books is easy, but like if you're talking about other people, you probably have to like do a little more thinking about how you want to look and portray it and that type of thing. Yeah.
One day.
No, you'll do it. You'll do it.
So with everything that you've been doing, all of these different focuses, the writing the book, how do you keep yourself personally motivated when you're so busy motivating other people?
I will say, and again, this is kind of what the pandemic kind of confirmed or affirmed is, for me, it's like education and learning always keeps me pretty motivated. And then just creating, right? So this is the time of like learning for yourself and creating whatever it is you want to create. So I think that always kind of keeps me inspired, from the day-to-day stuff, right? Training's easy, right? At this point, it's like you can train, you can do it. It's, it pays the bills, it does what it's supposed to do. But it's like the stuff on the outside, kind of like you mentioned before, like how on the outside other than fitness, kept you or made you write something or do something. So it's kind of like that, like it being like learning for yourself, creating for yourself, however that looks, is always fun to like keep your energy up. And so that you realize that you don't have to get stuck in this box, right? And that kind of gets a little daunting if you stay in the box like that.
Yeah.
So you always have to kind of expand a little bit.
Yeah. And I think that you've definitely done that really, really well. So you touched on it a little bit, like in the pandemic and everything that's been happening this year. And the book was something that really came out of that for you. How do you see this getting better, I guess, from your point of view? Like what are things that we can do individually to help make things better moving forward? Because 2020 was just like a crazy year in so many different ways. But like, what do you think is one of the biggest things, like people themselves, if they can do anything to create change, what would you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's perspective, I think, and how you see the world and how you see your own health and how you see your own like business, how you see anything, right? It's a shift in perspective and maybe not necessarily staying the same, right? Being able to change and realizing that it's okay to change. I think that's kind of what people are learning and being forced to slow down, right? To this year and realizing what's important, what's not important.
Yeah.
And then I think, moving to 2021, I think it's going to continue. It might not necessarily, it doesn't mean it won't get better. I don't want to say like, I don't want to sound like it's just going to be like this, but it could be kind of like this, but again, it's a shift in perspective, right? Like, oh, like, I mean, yeah, you might have to wear a mask for a little bit until this time next year, right? But you'll be able to go to a yoga class and with your friends, or you might be able to go, to the movies again. You might be able to do certain things again, but it's just it'll be just a shift in perspective in how you do it, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean, again, it's forever, right? It's just until, for a period of time. So it kind of like makes you think, okay, nothing is forever. So I'm going to cherish the things that I have and will have and did get, and then just kind of like keep educating yourself and motivating yourself and do what you can do moving forward, right? As long as you use empathy and kind of keep that passion going for you and everyone, I guess.
Yeah, I think the shift in perspective is a great way to put it, because if I think back to, even my younger self and how I've evolved, emotionally, spiritually, I think one of the things that really helped me become more open-minded was just, I took a yoga class. Like I was doing those yoga classes that were out in Canton at Patterson, what was it, Waterfront Park. And, I had never really been really big into yoga before. It was all about like training and lifting and all of that. So when I allowed space for myself to experience something new, I started to see things differently. And I think that that's really big for people right now, is to allow themselves to just try something new that will help open their mind or help them experience the world in a different way. Because, I think that's a lot of the problem right now, is like there's so many people who only think one way, and it's hard for them to see someone else's point of view, which I think is really a big problem right now, especially.
Yeah, for sure.
So hopefully from this, people will get some ideas of some new things that they can try, whether it's meditation or Reiki or yoga or something that will open them up to at least receiving another point of view.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's definitely where we are. So, now I'll ask you a question. Where do you think fitness is going to go?
Oh, you're going to ask me a question. Where do I think fitness is going to go? So I think pre-pandemic, the studio life was really booming. Like, so big box gyms were not really the thing anymore. Like back in the day, yes, like that's where everything was. Like big clubs, it's like a one-stop shop. You have your group X, you can drop your kids off, you can take any class, you can work out by yourself. But I think people were really starting to find themselves enjoying an experience. So these studio classes brought experiential fitness to people and gave them sort of like a tribe or a belonging. And so I think that pre-pandemic, that was the way that we were going with fitness. And I still believe that to be true. Unfortunately, with everything happening, it's really sad to see that a lot of them have had to close down. People have lost their jobs, and that's really hard to see. I think hopefully we'll come back from that. I really hope and pray. But I also think that because of the pandemic, and even prior, there was a huge virtual shift. I mean, we've all taken to IG Live and social media and Zoom. And I think that there's large platforms out there now too, like the Peloton, which was pre-pandemic, but really boomed during this time. And then we have the Mirror now that Lululemon just purchased. And so I'm thinking that a lot of that will still continue to happen in 2021, but there's no doubt that human connection will ever go away. I think that especially from receiving feedback with my classes. During the shutdown, we had virtual classes only. And then once things started opening back up, we took things outside. And people said to me, this is so much more motivating for me to come and like be in person and to feel a part of something.
So it's hard to say, I don't think that in-person fitness will ever go away, but I do think that virtual training will continue to boom in 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I think definitely everyone went virtual, obviously, right? So I think it was a time for you to pivot and shift your business, right? As a fitness industry, I think everybody went straight to Zoom or whatever, whether you're a studio, even a gym, training, all that stuff. It was one of those things like I never wanted to go. I mean, I kind of would dabble in like the online world a little bit here and there in the past, but it was never like quite like I could never quite grasp it. And I always felt I was so much better live than in one-on-one, right? So, and then once you were kind of forced to go, on Zoom, it was like, oh, and it was like even then I remember even talking with other trainers about it, like it was like, oh, do I charge the same? And then people were like, and then like hearing other like just like people talk, they're like, yeah, like if you're the same person no matter if you're virtually or if you're in person, right? And I was like, oh yeah, I guess so. And then you would do workouts with people, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, or man, I felt that. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, like it kind of is the same, like like so you give yourself that like kind of confirmation that okay, I can do this. So that shift and pivot, I went all online, went all group classes, like literally it was like the next week, like it was March 15th, I stopped training. And the week after that, I had like 2 or 3 like classes, like I was like ready to roll. Yeah. But it was just like one of those things, like you have to, right? So now I wasn't doing a lot of one-on-one training in the beginning, but then it kind of slowly picked up virtually on FaceTime and Zoom, and even got clients back that I haven't trained in a while, like, which is pretty crazy. Yeah. So it was pretty cool, and then started doing more like live stuff. Probably like July-ish, and I just kept to that. I got like I knew myself. I was like, all right, I'm just gonna stick to this virtual as much as long as I can, and then do some one-on-ones live. And now I'm probably a little bit more back to live, and I still have a few virtual clients.
I think group fitness is easier to do virtually. Because, when you have a one-on-one client, access to equipment is also another issue. Especially when you have, like, if you're doing any type of, like, corrective exercises and things like that, I think, it's very difficult to do it over Zoom, especially if they don't have the equipment that you would like to be using with them. So I think that's a really big obstacle for just taking things 100% virtually, because it doesn't fit every client. I think, our older demographics too, who, might not be as savvy with some of this technical stuff, they really will just still appreciate having someone there to help coach them the correct techniques and form and
yeah. I went the no equipment route. So for all my classes, you don't need equipment.
Same.
So that way, I just kept it easy and simple. And then as I did that, and again, this is like a little bit starting to look ahead, right, to next year. So I think it was like August. I was like, okay, I'm just going to start building up my platform of classes, definitely for the next year, say, right. And then I started. I go, let's add some yoga. So I found 2 yoga instructors. So now I'm like, okay, we'll just do. I'm now 5 classes a week, and I'm like, cool. And I can make this I don't want to say for my people, but for people who want to be on it. But the cool thing is, I think I want it to be more like personalized for them from the group X standpoint. So where like it's hard to get that on Zoom. Like, everybody's done Zooms, 1,000 Zooms by now, right?
Yeah.
You can't get people to turn on the camera half the time, right? So at least I like for my, like, we kind of do talk in the beginning of class, which is kind of cool. Like, oh, hey, what's going on? How's your day? Or, how you feeling? Like, and you have a couple people in there, right? So I'd rather have like 4 or 5 people than have like 30 with like half of them with the cameras turned off. Like, and so I think that's what's going to be kind of cool. At least for like what I'm like trying to like start to build out is like to kind of keep it to that. Oh, kind of like if you want to be here, you want to be here and in it, and that kind of thing. So, and I think it's been pretty good. So I'm just like looking into that as as it gets colder out, right? And people like don't want to necessarily go to a gym, and you can't really go outside. I mean, you can, but it's, do you want to? You know, so
yeah.
That's where, and some people don't like Zoom. You know, so it's kind of finding all those, you know, gaps and stuff. You know, or filling all those gaps.
Yeah, I'm definitely doing a combination of all of those things. And I taught a class outside this morning, and it was like 40 degrees.
Oh man, it was so cold.
It was very cold. And
nope.
They were for it though. They showed up, and I even gave them the option. So I was like, "Are you guys sure? Do you want to keep going?" And they were like, "Let's go." So
yeah.
But I think definitely, obviously, like as the more deeper we get into winter, you know, adjusting class sizes and maybe taking them inside as opposed to having, you know, the group of 10, you do like 4 and 4, and just trying to make it as safe as possible, but, for everyone. And it's just a tough time to navigate for sure. So especially if you don't have your own studio space, to go and bring people. So let's kind of go back into, so this podcast is called Why Wellness, and I know you talked about, you know, how you got into the industry. I want to talk about like what keeps you in this. Like everybody has a why, like why they do this. I don't know if it's like the people you meet, or is it more so the education, because I know that you also you have a Pilates bar education practice, right? So you can actually help people get certified to teach, right? So what's your why? Like, tell me more about that.
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, part of it's, you know, I guess it does start back to, you know, when I started training and I think longevity, right?
Yeah.
So it was always like kind of, when I was like kind of even just like looking for something, like when I first did mat Pilates and stuff like that, I was like, whoa, this is kind of like, I know this is something I can do when I'm 80, 90, right? So it was like, that's what drew me to Pilates. And it was so like I can get down on the mat and do Pilates, whether I'm hurt, injured, if I'm overweight, whatever type of person you are, like you can do Pilates. Yoga can be a little intimidating, right? It's like, oh, you see people doing crazy poses. You're like, oh, I can never do that. Balance. You know, so you get a little more intimidated with the yoga, I think. But Pilates for me was such like a more like, I think the accessibility to it was amazing. So I always thought in terms of like, that's my why, was longevity. And it was like just that wanting to learn and share knowledge, I think with people, which was why I think the Pilates bar training kind of came about too. You know, I just think like even like just learning, like even like with biohacking stuff, I got into that a little bit. I still am into that, and just learning about, you know, how to live longer, right? How you can, you know, feel better, how you can, and not using necessarily like how you can recover, not using, and not necessarily have to be fitness and ground and pound all the time. And what can I do nutritionally? What can I do to recover? How's my sleep? How's you know, with meditation, what else is there? It's like kind of the same thing with that. Why I got into meditation. Same with Reiki in terms of like just, you know, self-healing type thing, right? So it's kind of like that was kind of always that kind of came more my why in terms of like from the longevity, like umbrella, right? So, and that's like kind of never going to go away, right? So it's like, you know, once you're in it and you made that declaration, it's like, it becomes like, and there's always going to be more and more and more and more, right? Like, you know, learning throughout, you know, time. So, because you can never know everything. So you're always just going to want to keep educating, and then teaching that to your clients. And it's cool when you see it work, right? And you see it like, you're like, man, that's pretty cool, you know? And even if it doesn't work, or if it sparks something in somebody else to do something or learn something about themselves, and that's kind of the ultimate goal, right? Whether it's coming from me or somebody else, or, you know, so you have to, I just think it's part of that being a servant purpose, I guess, too.
I love that longevity, and it brings up a good point, because actually when I have conversations with my mom, she asks me, what are you going to do when you're 60, 70 years old? Like, I can't see you out there the way that you are right now. And, you know, it's something to think about. And I think, you know, that's why it's important to get involved with so many different areas, to meet different people, because for me, I think it's like I enjoy the business side. I also enjoy like the education side, like going to conventions, like the idea of Personal Trainer Institute, or going out to URSA or something like that, and just being involved in the fitness business, as opposed to thinking that I'm going to be out there with the same amount of energy that I am right now when I'm 60 or 70.
Yeah, but you can still do it though. I mean, if you want to, right? So, I mean, you see trainers who are 60 training, and that's cool. It's just what you want, whatever it is you want to do, right?
For me personally, I don't see it happening.
I
don't think so.
Like, I don't see it for me at 50. But at the same time, I think like I'll never abandon what got me here too. Like, so it's kind of like, I may not be quote unquote training when I'm 50. I'll be doing some type of training when I'm 50. Like, it might be like not as much, but it'll still be there. So.
And that's the thing I love about it, is that it's always been there. Like, for me personally, probably, for you too, it's always been something in a time of need, both personally and professionally, like, especially during this time when like all the layoffs have been happening, like, my clients, the ones that were still able to stay on, like they were still there. And like, that's something to be grateful for, because it allowed me to still, keep my income in some way. And, so that's professionally, but then also personally, it's always there for me, again, with like the mental side, when things are, you can't see anybody, and you're feeling isolated, you can still go out and move your body in some way, shape, or form. So that's what I love about it. Do you have any daily habits or rituals that you are like, okay, I wake up, I do this, and this, like, to help keep you focused and like not mindlessly on stuff that is just not conducive to a healthy lifestyle? Can you think of any habits that you do on the reg?
Yeah, I do. I meditate every morning. So I usually get up around, I'd say now it's pandemic time, like 5:30, 5:45-ish. Usually do a 20-minute meditation or so. And then after that, it's like that, brush the teeth, make the bed. And that's kind of like the 3 in the morning, right? At night, it's kind of like, sometimes I'll try to get another meditation in a day if I can, like around like the 4 o'clock time, 5 o'clock time. If I can, I'll do another one of those workouts, usually somewhere in there. But I would say that's kind of like my normal ritual for most days, and that's weekends too. Like, I don't like, because it's weekends, like, you can sleep in. It's like, I'd still get up. I mean, there's something about morning and quiet time I really like. So I really like, I feel like I have to have that.
Do you go to bed at the same time too? Like every night, do you go to bed at the same time?
Yeah, I try to. Yeah, I try to 10:30-ish. I like try to like be in the bed. Just because you get up so early, so it's kind of like, all right, well, you used to start getting tired around that time. So yeah, I try to hit the bed around like that 10:30 time, pretty much every night. Yeah, and I think rituals always kind of shift and change, but you have the same structure to your ritual, and then it might change in terms of what you add in there, right? Again, you can talk about that forever in terms of like biohacking with like essential oils and all that stuff, and you might kind of want to add in there, vitamins and that kind of thing. But like, it's like, you can talk about that stuff forever, but that always kind of shifts and changes, I think. But I always have that kind of same structure, I think.
Okay. Do you eat like before or after? Like, do you eat first thing, or do you like meditate, brush teeth, make the bed, and then like eat? Or do you?
No. So I kind of do a little intermittent fasting. Like I do like, I mean, I don't eat till usually like 9-ish, 9:30.
Okay.
Sometimes it's not till lunch. So I kind of like implemented that practice.
There you go. That's a ritual.
Yeah. So like I kind of like will do that. I mean, I always do, like, I'll do coffee or espresso or something like that in the morning. But for the most part, I try to like not. I'll do a shake or something like around like that 10 o'clock time, 9:30 time, and that's like enough for me.
Yeah.
And then it's lunch, and then dinner's usually around like 7.
And then you don't eat again until the next morning. Yeah. Okay. So like you eat within a window of time, and that's worked. That's worked pretty well for you as far as like energy throughout the day and everything.
Yeah. That's one thing I think intermittent fasting has taught me in terms of like snacking. Like I feel like I don't have to snack. Like I'm not a snacker. Not that I was before, but it's like you just don't have that attachment to snacks.
You don't
like
sweet stuff, do you?
You don't I don't like sweets.
I remember that about you. It's like, why?
I don't. It's not my favorite. I like salty stuff.
Salty snacks, I think I'm a snacker. I definitely I'll try and have snacks throughout the day, which I learned is actually not good for you.
But that's perspective, right? So that could be good. I mean, if you want to graze, right? It's like
it depends.
Maybe you don't eat big meals. Maybe you don't eat big meals.
Yeah.
You know, you just eat like little things that go throughout the day, right?
Yeah, it depends on your lifestyle, people. So what works for me doesn't work for Jason, and vice versa.
Yeah,
it's our lifestyles. And then last question about like rituals. Do you use your phone in bed, or do you have like I know some people are like, no, like turn it off at least an hour before you go to bed, like that sort of thing. Do you do anything like that as far as like your phone or devices?
I wish I could.
Right?
I always try to. I try to, but it never works.
Yeah.
I think I just have to, because I'll put my alarm on my phone.
Yeah.
And I should get an alarm clock, right?
Right.
And then that's probably what I should just get an alarm clock.
Yeah, I've tried to do that as well, like not have your device, that sort of thing. It's almost impossible. But that's just an excuse. I know we could do it if we really like hunkered down and tried.
Yeah. You just gotta find like another tool, right?
Exactly. So buy alarm clock. That's what we've learned.
That's the goal for 2021.
That was our takeaway.
Everybody get alarm clocks. So that way you don't have to use the phone, right?
Yep, exactly. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for taking the time. I appreciate it. Where can people find you who are listening? Do you have a website? Where can they find you on social media? That sort of thing.
Yeah, so my social media handle is Charm City PT. It's on Instagram and Twitter. Facebook's Charm City Personal Trainer. Website is charmcitypt.com. And that's it.
And your new book is out now?
New book, The Adventures of Frankie Fitness. Frankie Does Pilates is out actually 11/11/21 excuse me. So this November.
Okay.
It is out, ready to roll. Sent a few copies out to some of our Kickstarter people, which is great. So we're rocking and rolling.
All right. Well, you heard it, people. Go get that book. It'll make an awesome gift this holiday season for the little ones. And again, thank you so much, Jason. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
And that does it, guys. Thank you so much for listening through to the end of that episode. I hope you'll share this with your friends, your family, and your network so we can continue growing this community even more and hear the stories that have yet to be told. Please let me know your thoughts too. Reach out. Tell me what you've learned. Tell me what's resonated with you. And let me know who you want to hear from next. I can't wait to talk to you guys soon.